It started with a single message on Rasheeda's phone, one that would unravel everything. She thought she knew about her marriage, her circle, and even herself. The message came from a private investigator, a man she'd quietly hired weeks ago when her gut refused to ignore the growing distance between her and Kirk. The video file he sent was only 1 minute and 17 seconds long, but that minute would shatter her peace, ignite chaos across social media, and drag half of Atlanta into a storm no one saw coming. In the clip, the dim glow of a hotel hallway camera caught Kirk standing outside a door room 412. He wasn't alone. The woman beside him looked familiar, someone Rasheeda had seen before, someone she'd even embraced on camera. When Kirk leaned closer, whispered something, and that woman laughed, every beat of the moment felt like a knife. Rasheeda froze. Her hand trembled so badly that the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Her world, carefully held together for the cameras, was seconds away from falling apart. Friends later said they had never seen her face that empty. Even when the cheating rumors surfaced years ago, even when gossip blogs had thrown her name through the dirt, Rasheeda had always kept her composure. But this time, it was different. This time, there was proof, or at least, something that looked a lot like it. And when the video hit the group chat she shared with her closest friends, the reactions came in fast. Some messages were pure disbelief, others full of rage. One of them wrote, "Girl, tell me this is fake, please." Another warned, "Don't do anything crazy. Think first." But thinking wasn't what Rasheeda wanted to do. She wanted answers. And in Atlanta's tight reality circles, answers don't stay private for long. Within hours, whispers began to travel from salon chairs to Instagram lives. Fans started piecing together timelines, screenshots, and past episodes like detectives. The phrase Room 412 began trending, and by evening, #RASHEEDA receipts was everywhere. People were divided. Some defended Kirk, claiming the clip was edited, while others insisted this was the proof Rasheeda had been ignoring for years. The tension reached a breaking point when Rasheeda's mother, Ms. Shirley, got involved. Those close to the family say she called Kirk directly, her voice shaking with fury, demanding the truth. "You think you can embarrass my daughter again and walk away clean?" she reportedly shouted. That call, sources say, set off a chain reaction that no one could stop. By the next morning, Rasheeda wasn't answering calls, wasn't posting, wasn't smiling. Her usual polished calm was replaced by silence. And when fans spotted her car outside a certain downtown law office later that afternoon, speculation turned into full-blown hysteria. What was in that video that changed everything? Who was the woman in the hallway? And most importantly, was Rasheeda finally done protecting the man who had built his empire beside hers? The truth behind that footage would soon spill into the open, piece by piece, pulling in friends, enemies, and former cast. What began as a private investigation was about to become one of the most explosive scandals Atlanta had ever seen. Rasheeda sat in her living room staring at the paused video on her phone, the glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes like a mirror she didn't want to face. Kirk's voice echoed faintly from the clip, low and intimate, a tone she knew too well. She replayed it again and again, searching for something, anything that could make it all make sense. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe the woman in the video wasn't who she thought it was. But deep down, something in her chest knew the truth. Her heart wasn't just breaking. It was confirming what her intuition had been screaming for weeks. Outside, Atlanta's night hummed with the sounds of distant cars and streetlights buzzing. But inside her house, silence carried weight. The private investigator's message still lingered at the top of her phone. "You were right to trust your instincts." She felt her throat tighten as she read it again. She remembered the day she'd hired him, the quiet desperation behind her calm smile when she told him, "Just find me the truth, no matter what it looks like." Now that she had it, she wasn't sure she could handle it. The phone rang suddenly, jolting her out of her thoughts. It was Candy. Her voice came through quick, urgent, the kind of tone only a friend uses when the whole city's buzzing. "Girl, I just saw that clip. Tell me you're okay." Rasheeda hesitated. "I don't even know what I am right now," she whispered. "I can't breathe." Candy sighed deeply. "Listen, before this blows up more, you gotta control the story. Don't let everybody else twist it. Do you think it's real?" Rasheeda's silence was the only answer. Within hours, the situation spun out of control. Blogs started posting grainy screenshots, comparing handbags, shoes, the woman's hair. People claimed it was Jasmine, Kirk's former flame, while others insisted it was someone from Rasheeda's own circle. One fan tweeted, The betrayal hits different when it comes from inside the camp. Soon the hashtag room for 1-2 was trending again, but this time, it was more than gossip, it was chaos. Kirk tried calling, but Rasheeda ignored every ring. He sent texts, long ones, short ones, all with the same desperation. Please let me explain. But there was nothing left to explain. The next morning, Kirk showed up at the house. Cameras weren't rolling, but the tension could have filled a whole episode. Rasheeda, open the door, he said, knocking harder each time. When she finally did, her eyes were red, her voice steady. What could you possibly say to fix this? Kirk exhaled, frustrated. That video ain't what it looks like. You know how people twist stuff. She crossed her arms. So what does it look like, Kirk? Because I see you standing in a hotel hallway with someone that ain't me. And you whispering like it's something secret. Kirk's jaw tightened. It was business. She laughed bitterly. Business? Since when does business wear perfume and giggle outside a hotel room at midnight? Their arguments spilled through the house like fire. Words turned sharp, memories turned weapons. I stood by you through everything, she shouted. Every rumor, every headline, every apology tour. And you repay me with this. Kirk tried to defend himself, his tone rising. You think I'd be stupid enough to mess it all up again? You think I don't know what we've built? She stepped closer. Then why are there always receipts, Kirk? Always something that makes me look like a fool in front of the world. Her voice cracked at the last word. Outside the house, paparazzi had already gathered. The story had reached TMZ by noon. Fans online debated every frame of the footage, dissecting it like forensic experts. One post read, Rasheeda deserves better. She been loyal too long. Another said, maybe Kirk's being set up. That clip too convenient. The divided reaction only made things worse. Candy came over that afternoon, quietly slipping past the cameras. She found Rasheeda in the kitchen, pacing. You gotta breathe, sis, she said softly. Don't let this break you. Not again. Rasheeda rubbed her temples. He keeps lying, and I keep believing him. I don't even know who I am in this anymore. Meanwhile, Kirk had gone into damage control mode. He called Stevie J for advice, hoping for some words of wisdom. Bro, you gotta get ahead of it, Stevie said, leaning back in his chair during a late-night call. Post something, make a statement. Silence looks guilty. Kirk hesitated, but if I talk, I give the clip more life. Stevie shrugged. Either you own the narrative or it owns you. Kirk ended the call, torn between his pride and his panic. The next day, something unexpected happened. The private investigator contacted Rasheeda again. This time, he wanted to meet in person. There's more you need to see, he said. Those 6 words chilled her. She agreed to meet him at a small diner outside the city, away from cameras and gossip. When he slid into the booth across from her, his face was serious. He opened his laptop, clicked play on a new video file, and turned the screen toward her. The footage was from a different angle, clearer, longer, impossible to deny. Kirk entered the same hallway, but this time, the woman stepped fully into the frame. Her face was unmistakable. Rasheeda's breath caught. Oh my God, she whispered. It wasn't Jasmine. It wasn't some stranger. It was a friend, someone she trusted, someone who'd been in her house. Someone who'd laughed with her on camera like a sister. Her name was Crystal, one of her closest friends for over a decade. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, Nat was personal. The investigator closed the laptop gently. I'm sorry, ma'am. I thought you should know who you're really dealing with. Rasheeda left the diner numb, her phone buzzing nonstop. Fans were demanding statements, producers were calling about potential storylines, and Kirk's team was scrambling to contain the fire. But the moment she sat in her car, staring at the steering wheel, everything went quiet again. The betrayal looped in her mind, the laughter, the whisper, the door closing. She didn't cry this time, she just felt hollow. That evening, when Kirk came home, she was waiting. You said it was business, she said calmly, her voice low but steady. Kirk froze. What do you mean? She stepped forward, holding her phone up. You want to explain why my friend was in that hallway with you? Kirk's expression shifted from confusion to guilt in seconds. Crystal, that's not, don't. She interrupted. Don't insult me. With another lie. He tried again, but his voice cracked. We were just talking. She came to discuss some project. Rasheeda tilted her head. In a hotel hallway. At night. You must think I'm stupid. Kirk's silence said more than words ever could. She stared at him for a long moment, her heart breaking in slow motion. I gave you everything, she whispered. Loyalty, forgiveness, a second chance. And you couldn't even give me honesty. Kirk stepped forward, but she moved back. Don't touch me. Not tonight. He left the house without another word, and as the door closed behind him, the sound felt final. By morning, the city was awake with new rumors. Crystal's name had leaked, and the internet went wild. Fans flooded her Instagram with comments, calling her every name imaginable. She turned off her comments within hours, but the damage was already done. The betrayal cuts deep. One gossip blog posted, "A friendship and a marriage in shambles." Candy called again, voice full of disbelief. Crystal, Rasheeda sighed.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, I believed her when she told me she had my back. As the sun set that night, Rasheeda sat by her window, phone in hand, scrolling through the chaos she didn't ask for. Her name was everywhere again, but this time, she wasn't crying, she wasn't begging, she wasn't defending. She was just watching, quiet and still, as the empire she built with Kirk cracked in ways that couldn't be repaired. What she didn't know was that the storm was only beginning. Somewhere in the city, Crystal was preparing her own version of the story. One that would twist the truth even further and drag everyone into a war of lies and loyalty that no one could escape. Kirk didn't sleep that night. He spent hours driving through the city, replaying every moment in his head, every lie he had told, trying to protect himself. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. When he finally pulled over near Piedmont Park, he sat there in the dark, staring at the skyline. The truth was catching up fast, and this time there was no clever apology, no storyline edit that could soften the blow. He had been caught in something far deeper than a mistake. It was a betrayal layered with pride, ego, and fear. Back at the house, Rasheeda barely moved. Her mother came over early in the morning, finding her daughter sitting in the same spot on the couch. "Baby, you can't sit in this pain forever, Ms. Shirley said gently, sitting beside her. You gotta stand up, fix your crown, and face what's yours." Rasheeda's eyes didn't leave the floor. "Mama, I can't even tell what's mine anymore. I built everything with Hymar business, our image, our family, and now it feels like it's all a lie." Ms. Shirley placed a hand on hers. "Then maybe it's time to start over." From the truth this time. That afternoon, Kirk came back home. The air between them was heavy, quiet, charged. He stood near the doorway for a long moment before speaking. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said softly. Rasheeda didn't turn around. "You never do," she replied. "It just happens, right? Like all the other times." He sighed. "You know how it is out here. People tempt you. People twist things." She spun around suddenly, her voice sharp. "Stop blaming other people for your choices. You didn't get caught in temptation, Kirk, you walked into it." The confrontation grew louder. Kirk tried to defend himself, but every word only made it worse. "You don't know what she told me," he said suddenly. Rasheeda frowned. "What are you talking about?" Kirk hesitated, then blurted it out. "Crystal said you'd been talking to someone behind my back. She said she saw you at a restaurant with another man." The room went still. Rasheeda laughed in disbelief. "So that's your excuse? She lied to you, and instead of asking me, you went straight to her hotel room." Kirk's silence was an answer. "Wow," she said quietly. "You let gossip make you betray your own wife." While the argument raged at home, social media had turned into a battlefield. Fans picked sides, influencers made reaction videos, and every gossip blog posted exclusive updates. Crystal, the so-called friend, finally broke her silence. On a late-night Instagram live, she appeared with red eyes and shaky hands. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said tearfully. "Things just got messy. There's so much the public doesn't know." Her voice trembled as she spoke about confusion and misunderstandings. But when someone asked directly if she had a relationship with Kirk, she ended the live abruptly. The clip went viral in minutes. By morning, Kirk's label called. "The executives were nervous. We need you to release a statement," one of them said firmly. "The press is saying your marriage is over. That affects your brand." Kirk rubbed his face in frustration. "Man, I'm trying to fix my life, not sell it." But even as he said it, he knew the machine had already started. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Stevie. "Bro, the blog's eating you alive," he warned. "You gotta do damage control before Crystal drops receipts." Kirk froze. "What receipts?" Within hours, screenshots began surfacing online. Private messages, late-night calls, photos of hotel bookings, each one painting a darker picture. One text thread appeared to show Kirk begging Crystal to keep quiet. Another showed him promising her that things would change soon. Whether real or fake, the posts spread faster than truth ever could. Rasheeda saw them all. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the evidence. He really did this, she whispered, her voice breaking. Candy arrived just as the tears finally came. Let it out, she said softly. You've been holding too much. Later that evening, Kirk tried one last time to speak. I need you to hear me out, he said, standing by the doorway of their bedroom. Rasheeda didn't look up from her phone. I already heard everything I needed to hear. Please, he begged. It wasn't what it looks like. I was angry. I was confused. She lied to me about you. I thought you were the one hiding something. She looked at him then, eyes tired, voice low. And even if I was, does that make what you did right? You didn't just betray me, you betrayed yourself. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the quiet ticking of the wall clock, marking time they'd never get back. Finally, Kirk sat down across from her. I know I messed up. I always thought if I kept the truth buried, I could protect us. But now I see I was just protecting my ego. Rasheeda's tears slowed, her voice softer now. It's not about the video anymore. It's about the fact that I can't trust you. He nodded slowly, words caught in his throat. As night fell, news broke that Crystal had left Atlanta. Sources claimed she was taking time away from the spotlight. Others said she was paid off to stay silent. Fans speculated non-stop, fueling theories that Kirk had arranged her disappearance. This story just gets darker. One Twitter user wrote, "Somebody hiding something big?" The tension reached a boiling point when an anonymous email landed in several bloggers' inbox. It contained one line. The video isn't the full story. There's a second clip. Rasheeda heard about it before Kirk did. When Candy called to tell her, she went cold. Another video, she asked. Yeah? Candy said. And they say this one shows what really happened after he went inside that room. For the first time in days, Rasheeda felt something other than sadness, fear. If that's true, she whispered, then the world's about to see everything. Meanwhile, Kirk sat alone in his car again, scrolling through his phone. Every headline screamed betrayal. Every comment judged him. He thought about calling Rasheeda, but what would he even say? There were no words left to repair what he'd done. His phone buzzed again, an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. Frost. A woman's voice said quietly. I have the second video, and you need to see it before it goes public. The call ended, leaving Kirk staring into the dark. For the first time, he realized the situation was beyond his control. Whatever was in that second video could destroy everything: his marriage, his business, his name. And this time, there was no one left to blame but himself. The clock struck midnight, and somewhere across the city, Rasheeda sat awake, both of them trapped in the same silence, waiting for a truth neither of them was ready to face. The next morning came heavy with tension, the kind that hangs in the air before a storm breaks. Rasheeda woke up to her phone vibrating non-stop. Calls, unread messages, dozens of new mentions on social media. She hesitated before unlocking it, her stomach tightening as she scrolled through the flood of notifications. There it was, a headline from one of the biggest gossip blogs in the country. Exclusive, Part 2 of the Rasheeda scandal video, leaks what Kirk did next, will leave you speechless. Her breath caught. She didn't want to see it, didn't want to believe there was more. But curiosity and pain always walk together. She clicked the link. The video opened with a shaky view of that same hallway, but this time it didn't stop at the door. The camera followed Kirk and Crystal inside. The room was dimly lit, music playing faintly in the background. Kirk sat on the edge of the bed, talking, laughing too comfortably, too familiar. Crystal leaned closer, touched his arm, and whispered something. The video ended right as they moved out of frame. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough. Enough to kill doubt, enough to end any illusion that the truth could be twisted. Within minutes, the internet exploded. He really did it this time, one tweet read. There's no coming back from this. Fans who once defended Kirk turned on him instantly. The same voices that once celebrated their marriage were now dissecting every past interview, every old episode, searching for signs that this was inevitable. The couple that built their brand on resilience had finally reached a point where even love couldn't hold the pieces together. Kirk's phone rang nonstop, but he didn't answer. He already knew. His team called, panicked. The video's everywhere, Kirk, one of them said. We need to respond now. Kirk sat silently in his studio, head in his hands. Respond to what? He muttered. The world already made up its mind. His voice cracked as he scrolled through the comments. You played yourself. Rasheeda deserves the world. Karma finally caught up. He couldn't argue with any of them. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's house became a fortress of quiet chaos. Her mother had taken the kids to stay with family, and Candy sat with her, trying to keep her calm. Don't look at your phone anymore, Candy said softly. It's only gonna make it worse. Rasheeda's voice was low. I just want to know why. After everything we built, why wasn't I enough? Candy hesitated, then said, sometimes it's not about you being enough. It's about them never being ready. Later that day, Kirk showed up at the house again. This time, he didn't knock. He used his key, walked in slow, and found Rasheeda sitting in the living room with her laptop open. The leaked video paused on the screen. She didn't look up when she said, "You've humiliated me for the last time." Kirk stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Please, let me explain before you do anything." Rasheeda shut the laptop quietly. "There's nothing left to explain. The whole world just watched me get betrayed in real time." He sat down across from her, his eyes tired, voice heavy with regret. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I was angry. I felt pushed out, and she told me you were done with me. She said you were seeing someone else." Rasheeda's face hardened. "So that's what you do when you feel insecure. You destroy everything." She stood up, pacing. "You didn't just cheat, Kirk. You made me a headline. You made me a punchline. And for what?" Kirk's voice broke. "I messed up. I know that, but please, don't let this be the end of us." Her laugh was bitter, hollow. "The end. It's been ending for years. We just didn't want to admit it." She turned away, tears rolling down her face. Kirk reached for her, but she stepped back. "You don't get to touch me right now." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, Kirk whispered, "I'll fix this." Rasheeda looked him in the eyes and said quietly, "You can't fix what you destroyed." That evening, Kirk posted a public apology on Instagram. His caption read, "I take full responsibility for my actions. No excuses. No lies. I hurt the person who stood by me the most, and I have to live with that." Within minutes, the post was flooded with comments, some praising his honesty, others tearing him apart. Fans tagged Rasheeda, begging her not to take him back. Her name trended again, not because of her music or business, but because of her pain. Crystal, on the other hand, disappeared completely. Her phone was off, her socials wiped clean. But her silence only fueled speculation. One gossip outlet claimed she had signed an NDA, another said she was hiding out in Miami. Candy warned Rasheeda to prepare for more leaks. "People like her don't disappear," she said. "They reappear when it benefits them." Rasheeda nodded. "Then I'll be ready." Behind the scenes, producers from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta started reaching out. They wanted to capture the fallout for the next season. One producer even told Kirk, "This could save your career if you let the cameras in." Kirk didn't respond, but the idea haunted him. Was his pain now just another storyline? And if it was, could he afford to walk away? Days passed, and the storm refused to die down. Everywhere Rasheeda went, whispers followed. She started wearing sunglasses even indoors, not out of vanity, but to hide the exhaustion in her eyes. One night, sitting alone in her store, she looked around at everything she'd built, the racks of clothes, the framed photos, the empire that carried her name, and felt the weight of it all pressing down. "I gave my life to this," she murmured, "and it's still not enough to protect me." Then, one evening, a package arrived at her door. Number, name, no return address, just a plain envelope, sealed tight. She opened it carefully, her heart racing. Inside was a USB drive, and a note that read, "The truth always comes full circle." For a moment, she froze, unsure if she should even look. But curiosity won again. She plugged it into her laptop, and the screen came alive with another video, one she had never seen before. This time, the footage wasn't from a hallway or a hotel room. It was from a restaurant, taken months ago. In it, Crystal sat across from a man who looked suspiciously like one of Kirk's old business rivals. They were talking, smiling, exchanging something across the table. A phone, maybe. A flash drive. Rasheeda's eyes widened. This wasn't just infidelity. This was sabotage. The video showed Crystal orchestrating something, maybe setting Kirk up, maybe trying to ruin them both. Her mind raced. Was Kirk telling the truth? Had she been manipulated into believing the worst? She replayed the video over and over, looking for clues. The timestamps matched the same week the first leak appeared online. Suddenly, the story wasn't so simple anymore. Maybe this wasn't just about cheating. Maybe it was a setup that went far deeper than either of them knew. Rasheeda sat back, heart pounding. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, it might all have been part of someone else's plan. And if that was true, she wasn't just a victim anymore. She was part of a much bigger game. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, shaking the windows. She whispered to herself, "Who's really behind this?" But deep down, she already knew the truth wasn't done with her yet. As the whispers spread across conservative circles, Charlie Kirk found himself surrounded by a silence louder than any accusation. His family's private tension had spilled into the public, and what was once guarded under layers of loyalty now lay bare before millions. His mother's absence from recent family events hadn't gone unnoticed, and those close to the Kirk household claimed that what began as a quiet disagreement had grown into something that could no longer be contained. Rumors painted a picture of betrayal, of words that cut deeper than intended, of power struggles that didn't stop at politics but bled into their living room. Insiders whispered that the man who lectured America on morality couldn't hold together the very foundation he preached about. At Turning Point's headquarters, staff exchanged uneasy glances as headlines hinted at trouble at home. Every tweet, every speech, carried a shadow now. People watched not just for his words, but for what his eyes couldn't hide. Those who once admired him began asking questions. The man who built a brand on family values seemed distant, distracted, almost fragile. And behind the cameras, close friends described nights of raised voices, phone calls unanswered, and a growing divide between image and reality. While his public statements carried calm authority, insiders knew that offstage, things were unraveling. The tension wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. A leaked report suggested disputes over family business investments, control over property, and decisions made in secret. One family member allegedly accused another of selling out for influence. It was a mess that no media training could clean up. Kirk's team tried to bury the story, but the internet had already decided to dig deeper. Anonymous posts appeared on forums. Old acquaintances began to talk, and before long, the phrase Charlie Kirk family scandal was trending in searches. Yet, through it all, Kirk stayed silent, his calculated calm only fueling more speculation. Then came the alleged confrontation. It happened, according to one unnamed source, at a private dinner meant to reconcile the growing rift. What was supposed to be a conversation turned into an argument so heated that someone walked out in tears. Neighbors later confirmed hearing a car speed off that night. No one could verify the full details, but fragments of the story leaked piece by piece, feeding a public hungry for more. Kirk's allies urged him to issue a statement, to get ahead of the narrative, but he refused. Instead, he posted a vague quote about forgiveness and truth on his social media, which only fanned the flames. To his critics, it looked like guilt. To his supporters, it looked like restraint. Either way, the storm had already taken shape. As the days passed, the political became personal. His next public appearance, at a student event in Arizona, drew record attendance, but for all the wrong reasons. Cameras zoomed in on his expression, trying to decode the strain behind the smile. When he spoke about unity, the audience noticed his voice falter. When he mentioned family, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Even his co-founder, usually seen at his side, kept a careful distance that night. Within hours, edited clips went viral, framing him as a man on the verge of breaking. Podcasts debated whether the conservative poster boy had finally cracked under the weight of his own image. And for the first time, even his most loyal supporters began to admit something was off. Behind the scenes, his wife was said to be staying with relatives, refusing to return home until certain truths were addressed. Sources claimed there were messages, screenshots that could change everything if ever made public. Though unverified, the threat of exposure hung heavy over Kirk's camp. Every journalist wanted a piece of the story, and every insider feared being the next one outed. A trusted aide reportedly quit after being questioned about leaked emails. Legal teams got involved, drafting statements, preparing for the possibility of litigation. Still, Kirk maintained silence, choosing instead to focus on his media appearances as though nothing had happened. It was a strategy of deflection, but one that couldn't last forever. The fracture widened. His closest friends noticed the toll. Sleepless nights, canceled meetings, whispered phone calls. One source described him as haunted, like a man watching his empire crumble from within. Yet even in his exhaustion, Kirk refused to show weakness publicly. Every interview became a performance, every smile rehearsed. But authenticity is hard to fake when pain becomes public. The audience could sense it. Even his enemies showed restraint, as if aware they were witnessing something human beneath the controversy. And then, in a twist no one expected, a family member broke silence anonymously through a leaked voice memo that found its way to an online outlet. The voice was trembling, emotional, filled with regret and accusation. It hinted at betrayal, not of politics, but of trust. And once that clip surfaced, everything changed. Supporters turned cautious, detractors smelled victory, and in that chaos, Charlie Kirk was left standing at the crossroads of image and truth, trying to decide which one he could still save. The fallout grew heavier with each passing day, spreading far beyond what even his worst critics had imagined. Conservative networks debated whether to address the matter, fearing backlash from their own audience. Kirk's speeches, once commanding and confident, began to sound defensive. His team insisted the family issues were being exaggerated, but silence was no longer enough. Screenshots of private messages, alleged financial documents, and even fragments of audio clips began appearing online, each one blurring the line between rumor and evidence. The same media he had often condemned now dissected his every move with surgical precision. Every photo, every appearance, every word became potential proof of guilt or innocence. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was a slow, public unraveling of a man who had built his identity on control. Behind closed doors, his inner circle was fracturing. Staff who once swore loyalty began leaking information to journalists in exchange for anonymity. It's chaos, one insider confessed. No one knows who to trust. Kirk's father, who had always remained in the background, was suddenly thrust into the conversation after reports surfaced of business disagreements. Family members unfollowed each other on social media, and eagle-eyed viewers noticed what used to be unity now looked like damage control disguised as silence. One particularly striking moment came when Kirk appeared on stage for a live Q&A, and a student directly asked about the family rumors. For a brief second, he froze, his expression shifted, his usual composure slipped, and though he quickly regained his rhythm, that hesitation was enough to fuel 1,000 new headlines. The political world is unforgiving, and Kirk's rivals seized the opportunity. Anonymous think pieces appeared overnight, drawing connections between his public stances and private behavior. Some accused him of hypocrisy, others painted him as a victim of his own ambition. Conservative donors grew uneasy. Event sponsors quietly reconsidered their commitments. And even though Kirk insisted everything was fine, the weight of the narrative had already turned against him. Supporters flooded his posts with prayers, while detractors filled the same space with accusations. The duality of his online presence became almost tragic, a battlefield of sympathy and scorn. Through it all, Kirk kept posting quotes about strength and faith, each one sounding more like a plea than a statement. Those closest to the situation described sleepless nights filled with calls between lawyers, relatives, and media strategists. One account mentioned a confrontation at a church meeting where voices were raised and tears were shed. The tension had become unbearable. Insiders claimed Kirk wanted to take a temporary step back from public life, but his advisors warned against it, fearing absence would be seen as admission. So he stayed visible, attending events, smiling for cameras, all while rumors about an impending legal conflict grew louder. And somewhere in the midst of it, his wife, who had remained silent through it all, posted a cryptic message on her private account. Truth always outlives the noise. It was deleted within an hour, but screenshots ensured it would never be forgotten. That single post reignited the entire storm. Was it aimed at Kirk, or was it a defense of him? No one knew for sure. Interpretations varied, and each theory spread like wildfire. Podcasts debated it, YouTube channels turned it into thumbnails, and late-night hosts made subtle jokes that cut deeper than intended. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion, but no one had clarity. Kirk's media team released a short statement denying all false narratives, yet the wording only raised more questions. Why deny narratives instead of claims? Why not address the details? Analysts noticed the careful phrasing and concluded that something was being protected. Something that couldn't withstand full exposure. In private, the toll was visible. Those who met Kirk described a man worn down by exhaustion. He was thinner, quieter, slower to respond. Once known for his sharp wit and unshakable certainty, he now seemed cautious, as if every sentence required pre-approval from his own conscience. The people who admired him for his fire began to pity him for his fatigue. The change was undeniable. And then, as if timed with cruel precision, a second leak dropped a video clip, allegedly showing an argument at a private event. The footage was grainy and the audio distorted, but the voice was unmistakably his. Though the context was unclear, the anger in the tone was enough to reignite every rumor that had begun to fade. Kirk's silence after that clip was deafening. Even his allies struggled to defend what they could no longer explain. And in that silence, a new narrative took root. That the man who spoke endlessly about principles was now learning how fragile those principles could be. When the audience turned their gaze inward, the air inside her house was thick with tension, the kind that even silence could not disguise. Rasheeda sat alone at the dining table, her phone still lying face down in front of her like a weapon she was afraid to touch. Outside, cameras had begun to gather, fans whispering about what she might do next. Kirk had been calling nonstop, but every time his name appeared on the screen, her chest tightened. she wasn't ready to hear his voice. Not after what she had seen. The private investigator's video replayed in her mind like a haunting loop. Every movement, every frame dissected until she no longer knew whether she was angry, broken, or simply numb. She could hear her mother's voice in the other room, arguing with someone on the phone. "She doesn't need to see him, Ms. Shirley said sharply. "Not tonight. He's done enough damage." Meanwhile, Kirk stood outside, pacing the driveway. The glow from the streetlights caught the strain on his face. When he finally saw Rasheeda's cousin, Tiffany, step out, he rushed toward her, desperate. "Please, just tell her to talk to me," he said, his voice cracking. "That video isn't what it looks like." Tiffany folded her arms. "That's the thing, Kirk, it looks bad. And for once, maybe she's not supposed to clean up your mess." Before he could reply, security stepped in, making it clear he wasn't welcome. He backed away, but the hurt in his eyes was impossible to hide. The crowd that had formed at the edge of the street filmed the moment, their phones raised like torches. By midnight, the clip had gone viral. Hashtags like #Rasheeda's Revenge and #KirkCaught were trending. And every blog in Atlanta was running its own version of the truth. Inside, Rasheeda finally picked up the phone and opened her messages. The private investigator had sent another update. This time a written report with timestamps, hotel records, and a note that read, "I think you should see this before he spins the story." She scrolled through it slowly, her breath shallow. The details were specific to specific. It wasn't just the hotel video anymore. There were receipts, screenshots of text messages, even a parking log showing Kirk's car in that exact lot. Tears filled her eyes as she realized this wasn't speculation. It was a timeline. And yet, something inside her hesitated. It all seemed too perfect, too polished, as if someone wanted her to find it. The next day, Rasheeda's best friend Candy dropped by, unannounced. She found Rasheeda sitting in her robe, staring at the muted TV. "Girl, this is getting out of hand," Candy said, sitting down. "People online think you about to file for divorce today." Rasheeda shook her head. "I don't even know what I'm doing. I can't tell what's real anymore." Candy leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Look, I know you hired that investigator for a reason, but you gotta ask yourself who benefits if your marriage falls apart right now." The question lingered in the air. Rasheeda frowned. "What are you saying?" Candy sighed. "I'm saying, be careful. Not everyone wants you to heal. Some folks want headlines." As the two women talked, Kirk sat alone in his studio, replaying the night from the video. The more he watched it, the more he realized something was wrong. The angles, the timestamps, they didn't match his memory. "This can't be right," he muttered, pulling out his laptop. He began calling people, checking schedules, asking questions. One of his producers finally said, "Bro, that footage, it's edited. I can tell. The lighting jumps halfway through the frame." Kirk froze. Edited, the word, gave him a sliver of hope. He immediately tried calling Rasheeda, but she didn't answer. So he texted instead, "Someone's setting us up. Please, let me prove it." Later that night, Tiffany walked into Rasheeda's room, holding her phone. "You might want to see this," she said softly. A new post had surfaced on a gossip page, showing behind-the-scenes clips of a reality show producer who had previously worked with the couple. The caption read, "When fake storylines turn to real." In the comments, people speculated that someone from production had leaked or even staged the footage to boost ratings for the upcoming season. Rasheeda's mind raced. Had she been manipulated again for entertainment? For profit? She pressed play on the clip, watching the producer speak in a candid interview. "Sometimes," the woman said, "we push situations just far enough to make them interesting. The audience loves tension." The sound of her own heartbeat drowned out the rest. If that video had been altered, if someone had set her up to break on camera, it would mean her pain was just another storyline. Anger began to rise, replacing the confusion that had paralyzed her for days. She stood, her voice steady for the first time. "If they wanted drama," she said quietly, "they're about to get it." She grabbed her coat, ignoring Tiffany's questions, and headed for the door. Outside, cameras flashed as she got into her car, but this time she didn't flinch. She wasn't running. She was ready to confront whoever had turned her life into a script. What she didn't know was that Kirk was already on his way to the same destination, clutching his own proof that the scandal had been carefully engineered. The truth was out there, but neither of them realized just how deep the deception went. The downtown studio was nearly empty when Rasheeda arrived. The few remaining crew members froze as she stepped through the glass doors, her heels echoing sharply against the tiled floor. She didn't announce herself, didn't ask permission to enter. Everyone knew why she was there. The producer she was looking for, Leona Harris, had been in charge of filming their family scenes for almost 2 years. She was the one always whispering, "Just a little more emotion, Rasheeda, or give me one more take, but make it real this time." Now, the same woman was hiding in her office, pretending not to notice the commotion. "Where is she?" Rasheeda demanded, her tone low and steady. A young assistant stammered, Chichi just stepped out. But before he could finish, the door opened, and Leona appeared, feigning surprise. "Rasheeda, I wasn't expecting." "Save it," Rasheeda snapped. "I just have one question. Did you leak that video?" The room went silent. Leona's expression flickered between guilt and defensiveness. "Look, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, forcing a nervous laugh. "This isn't how it looks." Rasheeda took a step forward. "That's exactly what Kirk said, too. Funny, y'all rehearsed that line." Her voice trembled not from fear, but from fury barely contained. Leona sighed. "Rasheeda, we both know the show needs tension. The audience wants real stakes, not fairy tales. Sometimes we have to shape the narrative a little, but I didn't leak anything." Rasheeda's eyes narrowed. "Shape the narrative? You destroyed my life for a storyline." Leona looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "People love you," she murmured. "They'll forgive you." Meanwhile, Kirk was in his car, driving faster than he should have been. He had just finished talking to a tech specialist who confirmed his suspicion. The footage had been edited. Not only that, but metadata showed the file was exported from a workstation belonging to the show's production team. "They framed me," he whispered to himself. He dialed Rasheeda, again no answer. When he finally arrived, security tried to stop him, but he pushed past them, his voice echoing through the corridor. "Rasheeda," she turned as he entered, both of them locking eyes for the first time since the scandal broke. Neither spoke for a moment. The crew watched from a distance, their phones quietly recording. "What do you want?" she asked coldly. Kirk held up his phone. "Proof. They played us both." For the first time, doubt flickered in her expression. Kirk walked closer, scrolling through files, showing her the data logs, the timestamps that didn't match. "See this? The original footage, half of it was shot on a different date. They stitched it together." Leona's face paled. "That's impossible," she said quickly, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Is it?" Kirk replied, turning toward her. "Because your name's on the export history." Gasps filled the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Rasheeda's breathing quickened, her anger now mixed with disbelief. "You lied to me," she said softly, her eyes never leaving Leona's face. "You had me thinking my husband was out here humiliating me again, and you did it for ratings." Leona tried to step forward. "Rasheeda, please, it wasn't personal, it was my marriage," Rasheeda interrupted. "My family, my sanity, and you call that not personal?" Kirk stood beside her now, silent, letting her words carry the weight they deserved. Leona tried to defend herself, but her voice was drowned out by the sound of a phone ringing. One of the assistants picked it up and mouthed, "TMZ." The moment shattered whatever was left of Leona's composure. "They already know, don't they?" Rasheeda asked. Leona didn't answer, but her silence said everything. Kirk exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "So this is what we've become. Characters in a show we didn't agree to star in." When they left the building, cameras were waiting, but the energy was different now. Instead of tears, there was defiance. They walked side by side, not speaking, but their silence was powerful enough to shift the entire narrative. That night, Kirk released a statement online, attaching the technical evidence of the doctored footage. "The truth," it began, "isn't always profitable, but it's always worth exposing." Within minutes, the internet exploded again. This time, the hashtags changed. #forgive, RASHEEDA, and #JusticeForKirk replaced the old ones. Fans flooded their pages with apologies, admitting they had judged too soon. Even major blogs issued retractions, citing newly verified information, but not everyone was ready to let go of the scandal. Some accused them of fabricating the news story to cover their tracks. Others believed the couple had planned the entire thing together for publicity. The irony wasn't lost on either of them no matter what they did. Truth had become just another performance. That night, as they sat in their living room surrounded by silence and half-packed suitcases, Rasheeda finally spoke. "You know what hurts the most?" she said quietly. Kirk looked up. "It's not the lies. It's that I believed them." He reached for her hand, hesitating before their fingers finally touched. "Then let's make them believe in us again." The moment was small, fragile, but it was something real in a world that no longer seemed to recognize the difference. Outside, Atlanta still buzzed with gossip, but inside, for the first time in weeks, the chaos began to fade. Still, Neither of them knew that one final twist was waiting, a twist that would prove that even when the truth comes out, the story is never really over. And just like that, what began as a private investigation had turned into a storm that swept through Atlanta, the entertainment world, and every corner of social media. The truth came out, but not without cost. Reputations were damaged, trust was broken, and the line between real life and television blurred beyond repair. Rasheeda and Kirk had faced public humiliation, betrayal from within their own circle, and manipulation at the hands of people they thought were allies. Yet somehow, through all the shouting, the tears, the doubts, and the flashing cameras, they found a way to reclaim their story, not through perfect forgiveness, not through a scripted reunion, but through something rare: mutual truth. They didn't get closure in a single moment, they earned it in fragments, one honest conversation at a time. The fallout from the scandal didn't fade overnight. Producers resigned, lawyers got involved, and the show's network scrambled to contain the damage. Statements were released, apologies were issued, and investigations were promised. But the internet doesn't forget, and fans didn't let it go quietly. Opinions poured in from every direction. Some said Rasheeda was too forgiving, that she should have walked away and started fresh. Others admired her grace, calling her a symbol of strength in an industry that feeds on pain. Kirk's image, though bruised, began to recover as people realized the extent of the manipulation. For once, one fan wrote, "The villain wasn't the husband, it was the machine." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. But maybe the real story wasn't about who was guilty or who was innocent. Maybe it was about what happens when love is pushed to its limit and still manages to breathe. When a woman who's been burned before decides to face the fire again, not because she's weak, but because she's tired of letting other people write her ending. Rasheeda didn't just survive the drama, she rewrote it. She turned the noise into clarity, the humiliation into strength, and the betrayal into a reminder of what she would never allow again. The last time she was seen publicly with Kirk, they weren't acting for cameras, they weren't posing for headlines. They were just sitting together on a park bench, talking quietly, as if the whole world had finally stopped watching long enough to let them be human again. But for fans, the story still lingers. They want to know if she ever trusts him completely. They want to know if the marriage can truly recover from the kind of damage that no therapist or network edit can undo. They want to know if the love that built an empire can survive in a world that profits from its collapse. Maybe those questions don't have clear answers yet. Maybe that's what keeps people hooked, the mystery of what comes next. Because even when the cameras stop rolling, the emotions never really do. So, what do you think? Was Rasheeda right to forgive Kirk after learning how deep the setup went? Or was it all just another layer of illusion in an industry that thrives on deception? Do you believe that kind of love can still be real after everything? Or was this reconciliation just another scene written for the spotlight? Your opinion matters. Because stories like this don't just live in headlines, they live in conversations like this one. The truth behind the scandal might have surfaced, but the meaning behind it is still being written. And that's where you come in. If you've followed this far, take a second to share what you think really happened. Do you believe the investigator's video was planted from the start? Or do you think someone close to the couple had their own reasons for stirring the chaos? Every theory adds a piece to the puzzle, and trust me, fans are already debating every possible angle. Drop your thoughts below, and let's see how divided or united everyone is after all this truth has come to light. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video if you were pulled into every twist and turn of this story. It's your support that keeps these deep dives going, the ones that look beyond the headlines, beyond the filters, beyond the staged tears, and get to what's really happening behind the curtain. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story that's already shaking the industry. Because trust me, the next one will make this look like child's play. There's more betrayal, more secrets, and more shock than anyone is prepared for. And you'll want to be the first to hear it when it drops. Turn on your notifications. Because when the next revelation hits, you'll want to know before the internet catches fire again. And if you're the kind of viewer who believes there's always another side, another truth hiding beneath the surface, then this channel is your home. We tell the stories no one else dares to. We connect the dots the blogs ignore. And we bring you the full picture, not just the pretty version. So stay tuned, because Atlanta might be cooling off for now, but in this world, peace never lasts long. Rasheeda's private investigator may have sent her a video that changed everything, but what came next changed everyone. The truth was never simple, the love was never easy, and the redemption, if it even exists, is still unfolding one headline at a time. And if there's one thing you should remember after all of this, it's that behind every perfect photo, every polished reunion, and every no comment, there's always another story waiting to explode. This was just one of them, but the next? It's already coming. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep watching because in this game, nothing stays hidden forever.